Good evening and welcome to We the People, brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. My name is Joan Higinbotham and I'll be your host for this evening's program. Well, you know, we always start the show by saying brought to you by the League of Women Voters. And some people have said to me, well, what exactly is the League of Women Voters? What do those women voters do anyway? So I thought tonight we'll go right to the top and have the two presidents of the Minneapolis League talk a little bit about what the League is and what it does. So I'd like to introduce them to you now. We have Ruby Hocker, one of our co-presidents. Hi, Ruby.
Hi.
And our other co-president, Pam Telleen. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in the League of Women Voters, and what do you do besides being a leaguer?
I'll start. I am currently a nonprofit professional. I went to the University of Minnesota and got a degree in political science. I graduated in 2009, and it was a difficult time to find a job.
Right.
So I did experiment a lot with volunteering and internships, and I had joined the League in my final month as a student after it was suggested to me by a professor who was instructing a Women in Government course. And I checked it out online, and I thought that that was exactly what I would want to do with my free time. Be meeting people, building some skills, and staying up on my immediate political surroundings. And I just thought I would love it, and I guess I really did.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, now, Pam, you have been a League member for longer than Ruby has.
I have been much longer than Ruby, but I actually joined the League in the mid-'70s, and I am not a political science major. I'm actually a speech pathologist, so my interest is all over the map, but I think because my interest is so varied, I wanted to belong to something that would give me a chance to dabble in and hear about lots of different topics and listen to people who knew so much more than I did, and then discuss different topics with people, the kinds of things you don't discuss over the lunchroom at the public schools, or the kind of thing even you don't really discuss over your back fence with the neighbors when you're raising little children. And so I joined just as a way to do something totally different from what I did during my day job, and stayed with it because it just was the right place for me and the right kind of organization for me, the right kind of people that I enjoyed spending time with.
Well, no, it's interesting because you were a full-time worker all the time. You were many of us, when we joined, were at home with our children, but you had children and you were working full-time.
I was, but my mother had been a leaguer, and so I grew up with a mom who was a leaguer, and so I was familiar with the idea of my mom leaving at night and going to these meetings and then coming back and being energized, or studying for days at a time to be able to present a topic. And I remember thinking, I wonder why she does that when, you know, she's not in school. Why does she do that? So when I moved into our new neighborhood, a neighbor invited me to come to a unit meeting, and I thought, well, my mom's been a leaguer all this time. I should see what it's all about really for myself. And I still do go to an evening unit, which is great because then I could work during the day, and we only meet once a month as a unit, and so
it's sort of like a book club, I think of it as. And I mean, it's a once a month meeting for those who want to, but not. Do you go to unit meetings also?
I do, and it's probably one of the things that I enjoy the most. You know, you get to know each other, and we have really good discussions in our meetings. And yes, there's 7 sometimes. The last few years we've been moving more towards having a forum once or twice a year. So there's 5 a year.
5 group meetings, then,
yes.
Small group meetings.
Right.
Well, and that is and actually Ruby and I are in the same group, which is really a fun thing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and our group has changed over the years, but sort of there's a core of women that have stayed with the same group, and then we've incorporated other groups, and so that's been kind of fun because we bring in a few new ideas.
Yes.
And then League also does have people who we call at-large, and they choose not to belong to a unit, but they still get the full benefits of being members of the League of Women Voters. They still get our voter. They still get the topics that we're going to discuss. They just get them either online or sent to them by U.S. mail. And they can go and visit a unit if they want to, but some people don't like the idea of being in a small group. They'd rather study it by themselves. So it's really open to anybody, but I think our most active members are the people who join the units, because you get friends. You make friends, and then you like Ruby said, you discuss things with them, and you get to know people at a much deeper level than you do in a lot of other organizations, I think, because you discuss ideas.
Well, I've found that we're lucky, I think, and probably all the groups feel they're that way, but we have some people with really different backgrounds and
we definitely do.
Different interests, which is, you talk about something and somebody will bring up something that you've never experienced or thought of.
Exactly.
So that makes it more interesting. Well, I guess we should tell people a little bit about the history of the League of Women Voters. And how long have we been around?
Well, the League itself in Minnesota has been around since 1919, so we're going on our 95th year. And the idea of having women get together and fight for women's rights actually started back in the 1840s with Lucretia Mott, and she gathered women together and said that she felt women needed to fight for equality. And so that she had sort of a group of women, and then it evolved into being the League of Women. And Minnesota is one of the first states to actually have a League of Women Voters. And we should say right now that we are not only women in our league, so we welcome men as well, but we still continue to call ourselves the League of Women Voters, because it was the women who fought hard to have the right to get the vote, and then beyond that, have the right to be equal to men in pay. They worked hard in the 19th century. They worked as I'm just looking at my notes because it's so hard to remember all the different things they've done. They first of all began working hard to ratify the 19th Amendment, which gave the women the vote. The Minnesota League has worked very hard with the National League on health care and on water quality and things that are important to Minnesota, but we also have a National League that looks at issues that are going to cover the entire United States.
And
so, go ahead.
Maybe that's something that could be explained, but there is a national league, and then every state has its own league, and then within the states, various local branches exist, and they can be city or even a group of counties.
Well, I know that like Duluth has a very large league.
Oh, yes.
Which is interesting, and but then there are some much smaller groups in Greater Minnesota too. So and so we have some interests in common, but some not so much.
Yes.
Right. And the state league tries to think of those issues that affect our state. And many times Minneapolis, because we are a very active league, we'll think of something that we want to study, and then we'll think, well, really it's something that's going to affect the entire state. So maybe we should talk to the state league and see if they're going to do a study on it. So it is, it really does allow you to learn about your own city, but also about the state. And then once a year we get a study from the National League, and that's usually obviously something that's going to affect our entire United States. And,
well, now this is interesting to me because as we talk about this, the topics, it isn't just how is the program determined? I mean, in other words, how do we come up with these ideas?
Actually, later this month we will be having our program planning meeting, which is a yearly meeting that takes place the January prior to our program year, which begins in July, ends in June. And all members are invited, and we get together and really discuss what we as individuals want to know more about. This is a grassroots organization, so all of our ideas come from our members, from the ground. And we basically decide what is the most timely, appropriate and doable topics, and select about 8 to 10 that we then send to our board of directors that basically decides the program schedule at the board retreat in the summer.
So in other words, anybody can come to that meeting with an idea.
Oh, yes.
And they do, it sounds
They
like.
do.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And now, is there lobbying? Is there, I mean, do they, how do we?
A little bit.
Yeah, and we, some people are very organized and they come with a actual format of how they think the topic will go and how they'll study it and how long they think it would take. And other people come and say, I'm just really worried about the streets in Minneapolis. I think we should study how we can keep the streets cleaner or safer, or I mean, it can be very specific to that person or to that person's community. But if they're very persuasive, they might convince everybody else in the league. Well, that is a good topic, and I'm concerned about that too. And so then that might become a topic that we actually study and talk about the next year.
And they do really range in their depth. For instance, this year we talked about sex trafficking, which is a huge topic, and it affects each level of municipal, state, nation differently. And then we also did Not in My Backyard. That was a topic, and so that's very local.
And we did talk about that. And so I try to take the topics that the league is studying and we talk about them here also, so that if you can't go to a unit meeting, you can listen to the discussion that we're doing. And since we're doing program making this month, it seemed like a good time for us to talk about program.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So, and another topic that's coming up in the last 6 years, I believe we've had a healthy legacy topic, and I'm sure you've had people on to talk about each of those water, air, food quality, and so we're continuing that this year, but we're branching out a little more to the healthy legacy of just people, and it's cradle to prison. So it's really, we're going to be talking about the idea that when people get out of prison, many times, or even when they're born and their life is filled with poverty and maybe they don't have the opportunities that other people have, they go to school, they don't necessarily graduate from school because it doesn't meet their needs, and then they end up in prison. Then when they get out of prison, it affects their getting a job, getting a house. It's a huge cycle. And of course their children, we were thinking of even saying maybe we should call it prison to cradle, because when you get out of prison, then if you have children, they're affected by the fact that you can't find a job and you can't find a house. So I think it's going to be a really interesting, it's going to be March 6th, and we are going to work with many other groups that are interested in this topic as well.
So March 6th.
March 6th at
So
Plymouth.
my guess is that we'll probably be doing something either next month or in March on the We the People program to talk about that topic. So
absolutely.
Get people more information. Right. Well, I know, Ruby, that you were involved in voter service. And of course, when people talk about League of Women Voters, they always think about voting. And that is something that's important. But what exactly do we do now?
We do so much. I would say the most visible piece of voter service would be our candidate forums. Sometimes they're called debates. But they are public events where we ask candidates from the municipal level, and we've also done park board and school board to come and answer questions in front of our audience and take questions from the audience so people can get a better feel for the candidates. Another big piece that we do is voter registration. The State League does register brand new citizens at citizenship ceremonies, and the Minneapolis League gets really excited about those. That they are just great to be at. That's probably my favorite thing I've done when I was in voter service. It's very emotional and it's very exciting.
So when they've just signed their citizenship documents or whatever,
we are
and
right
then
there.
Yep, we are right there, and they are so happy to sign up. It's amazing.
Right.
This must have been a busy year for you then, because
Yes.
because a lot of people are with an election and the city election.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
Now, how many different forums did you do in the year? Do you have any idea?
This last year, we planned 13. We did a lot of them jointly with other organizations or multiple organizations, and I believe we had more than 2,000 people attending in total, about 2,200.
Wow.
I think one of the interesting things that League does too is we work with community organizations that want to have a forum, but they don't, they call us and say, we want to sponsor a forum for our city council person, and there were several really good city council races this year.
Oh, yeah.
But they said, we're not sure how many questions should we ask, and do we let the audience ask the questions, or do we write them ahead of time? And so we'll sit down with whoever's organizing a forum and just give them our years of experience of doing these, and whether we moderate it or not, we've always gotten nice responses back saying, oh, that was so helpful. I never would have thought that we should have the questions written out ahead of time, because you don't want to give an audience necessarily to some of the questions depending on what the race is. So that's we did that a lot this fall as well.
Yes.
Now, another thing that often comes up and that we discuss among ourselves is the nonpartisanship issue. And
Yes.
people say, well, don't you support candidates, or what do you take a stand? So what's the story?
We are nonpartisan in that we do not support or oppose any candidates or parties, and we do like to distance ourselves from any situations where we feel like we're endorsing anyone. That's one of my favorite things about League, I think. And I think it really helps with credibility, and I think it really helps keep us open to hearing from people and hearing ideas from everywhere, and hopefully encourages people with a variety of backgrounds to seek us out and work with us.
And I think that is actually one of the reasons our membership has gone up in the last couple of years. Is I think people are tired of what they perceive to be, anyway,
Yes.
such divided party issues. And it's sort of like, well, where do I belong? I sort of want to hear from both sides, or I don't really believe this or this. I sort of have, I would like to know more about the meat of the issues. And so League has, we make a real effort to try to cover both sides if we're having any kind of a topic presented. And then if we have a candidate forum, we try to include, every candidate that qualifies to be in that particular forum.
Yes.
So
Of course, we had a little problem when we had
35.
many
Yeah.
candidates.
That was pretty stressful, but we felt like we supplied a great slate, and the people that attended thought we made some good decisions.
You made good decisions about who could be, how many people you could include, or
Oh yeah, whittling it down from 35 was hard, but we couldn't put on a forum with that many people.
But we did allow every candidate, if they wanted to, of the 35, to answer questions, and we put them on our website. So I think we were probably the only venue where some of them got a chance to answer the questions that were being asked.
so
of
even
all
though
of
they
the
couldn't
others.
be at the forum, they could answer the questions and you would
Exactly,
put it up on
and
the
we
website.
posted them on our website.
And actually, we did invite everyone to come and
Have the table.
we reserved space for them outside just so they could get the contact with voters.
Well, that's a
and-
good idea. So
Yeah,
they
we
could
wanted
be
them-
in the room. So
Yeah.
well, not in the room maybe, but maybe in the
Yeah.
area. Yeah, that's good. Well, so if somebody were going to come up to you and say, well, I'm thinking about joining the League of Women Voters, what would you say? I mean, why did you talked a little bit about why you joined, but what have you gotten from it, from your membership, do you think?
There are so many things, and I feel like they kind of fall into 3 categories. I feel like I could go on forever about what I've gained. The first is probably the most obvious. I get the chance to learn about political issues. I love politics, but I feel like I struggle with finding good resources. So I do like the way League presents topics and gives me an opportunity to study things. I feel like I'm a problem solver, so I do like to look at the roots of problems, and I think League does a really good job when we study issues, particularly with that. The second thing that I enjoy about League is the skills that I've built. When I was 21 and graduated from college, I was so shy. And
here she is.
yeah, and now, I mean, that's just one aspect of it. But running meetings, budgeting, writing grants, going out and speaking on behalf of my organization, going out and speaking on behalf of a topic. Those are things that I wouldn't get to do just sitting behind a desk. So that's something that I'm really glad that I've had the opportunity to do. And then I honestly feel like I've made some really great connections, professional and personally. There's people that I've met in League that reached out to me immediately, and I could tell that they wanted to almost have an informal mentee-mentor relationship, and those have been really fulfilling and very meaningful to me.
Great. Well, that it makes me want, if I'd been younger, that would be enough to get me involved. Yeah. So now you joined at a different time.
I did. I joined, and I think there are still many people who joined when I did who are still active, which shows the longevity and the staying power of being in the League. You don't. We maybe shifted from needing the mentoring to trying to do some mentoring, but I love the energy of the young people that are in the League too. I mean, and there aren't a lot of times, except for family gatherings, when you bring two generations together or three generations together. And I remember sitting next to Claire Euland, and I think she was 90, and I remember thinking, oh, this woman has so much to tell me, and now I hope that I can do some of those stories to some of the younger new members. And I love the conversations because they do ask questions that, as a longtime member, I might think, well, we've always done it that way. And I love when someone says, well, how about if we do it this way? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we do have a nice mix of ages and, as you said, backgrounds. I think that's another opportunity that I've had, is working to get to have friends who were not in education and were not even stay-at-home moms, or were not at home with their children, but were business women or lawyers or in fields that I might not have necessarily met. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for anybody, male or female, to join and meet people who are interesting. It's an interesting group of people.
Yes.
Well, now, it's interesting that you say that, because I'm thinking to myself, it is true that it is harder to meet people of at different places in their lives. I mean, you probably are the same thing, Ruby, on the other end, is that your friends are younger. And so it is a real melting pot as far as that's concerned. You do get to see different people. And now you were saying before we started, Pam, that you were just really intrigued by the variety of backgrounds of our new board members.
We do. We have a great group of people. We have someone who's a lawyer. We have someone who's a grant reader. We have one person who's belonged to the League in 3 or 4 different states. We have a couple of women who are very involved in the nonprofit world and in working with getting grants for other nonprofits. And we have a dancer. We have, she has lots of other talents too, but I mean, she was a dance major, which I think is so exciting because the art she just brings that perspective. So I might have missed a couple, but and we have a couple of new young moms, but they also have other jobs outside the home as well. So this, again, they're kind of joining like when you and I joined, which was the chance to get out of the house with, we not talk about children, but we also have young professionals. So it's been exciting and invigorating.
Well, now how can you get, I guess the 2 questions. First of all, how can you get involved, and how involved do you have to be?
Good questions.
A phrase that we use a lot here is you can get as involved as you want to be. So that could range from attending a unit meeting, which is low commitment, very social. You just get together with other people and talk about an issue in the community. And there is usually a follow-up action to those meetings, so that would be your next step, I suppose. And then there are unit leaders, which is, I guess, your next level of commitment. And they run their units meetings for an entire year. And then you could work kind of as needed on various special projects. People tend to have a particular topic of interest. Mine, when I joined, was like civic participation. I get really excited talking people into voting who may not have otherwise. So I jumped into anything I could voter service related. And the next step after that, I suppose, would be joining our board. We have 14 or 15 board members this year, so it's very big and healthy, and you can always step up to be president if you if you really wanted to do, the maximum level.
Well, we're coming to near the end, but I wanted to talk just to have you sort of give us a little bit about the calendar. So we're going to be doing program planning. We're going to be doing the discussion of cradle to prison. What are some of the other topics that you're going to be talking about this year?
Okay. Go ahead.
After Cradle to Prison, the April topic will be the anatomy of a bill.
Oh, that's a good thing to know.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're hoping to use some examples from the legislative session. I guess we're yet to figure out what those will be. And then I believe we're skipping right to city convention.
Well, we have the national topic in February, which is agriculture. And it's huge because it's sustainability, it's conglomerate farms.
Yeah, it is huge.
Being able, we're trying at this point in time to narrow the topic down
Figure out
because
how
it's
you
so
can
big.
But that's sort of typical of the league, is that you've done some really, it's a lot of different stuff. So in
It's
other words, I
very
guess that's
diverse.
another reason to join the league, is whatever you're interested in. There is going to be something. Well, I hope that we have convinced you that maybe you should look a little further and think about joining the League of Women Voters. And I know that we'll have some information on the screen that where you can call to get more information and so on. So I hope you do that. And I also know that there is going to be a publication that the league is doing that will be available soon on human trafficking and sex trafficking, and that will also be available free of charge from the League of Women Voters office. And so if you're interested in that publication, you can get that as well. So we'll hope you'll consider joining the League of Women Voters. We'd like to thank our guests, the co-presidents, Ruby Hocker and Pam Telleen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Joan Higinbotham for the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis saying thanks for tuning in to We the People. We hope you join us again. Good night.